Thanks, Brooke. Stormy Daniels says she's been in the adult film industry and even she's a better actor than the president. The lead starts right now. Do you know this thug? Stormy Daniels shows the world the sketch of the alleged Trump goon who threatened her and her child as the president's lawyer fights to keep more potential secrets under wraps. This is not normal. In brand new comments, former FBI Director Comey slams President Trump for saying he should be in jail. But is this publicity tour threatening Comey's credibility at all? Plus, one person's dead after an engine exploded and punched a hole in an airplane. Was a woman sucked out of the jet right here in the United States? The new chilling audio coming up. Welcome to The Lead, everyone. I'm Jake Tapper. We begin with our politics lead today and two media tours for two quite different nemeses of President Trump. Former FBI Director James Comey is continuing to promote his book as it hits shelves officially today. But a source close to President Trump tells CNN that it is actually the criminal investigation into his lawyer, Michael Cohen, and not Comey's book that is most of the source of his dark mood these days. As Stormy Daniels tells her story again, this time Daniels revealing this sketch of the man she says threatened her back in 2011, allegedly telling her to, quote, leave Mr. Trump alone. While Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, is insisting that Michael Cohen, who helped broker the hush money payment to Daniels, will flip on President Trump. Avenatti will join me in a moment, but first, let's go right to CNN's Athena Jones with more on the story. And Athena, this was the first time Daniels talked about the president's claim that he did not know anything about the payment, $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, and I don't think she buys it.
Hi, Jake. She most certainly does not buy it. And it was interesting to watch her joke about the president's acting skills in that interview. And as you mentioned, Daniels and her lawyer have now released a sketch, that sketch you just put up of the man she says threatened her after she told a magazine about her sexual encounter with Trump. It's a man with chiseled features. He's between 5'9" and 6 feet tall, in his 30s or early 40s, with a lean but fit body type. They're hoping someone somewhere knows who this guy is.
Let me just say, I work in the adult business, and I'm a better actress than he is.
Stormy Daniels responding for the first time to President Trump, who denied any knowledge of the $130,000 payment his personal lawyer Michael Cohen made to keep her quiet about an alleged 2006 sexual encounter with Trump.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
No.
Why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth to her allegation?
Well, you have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's an attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael Cohen.
Meanwhile, Daniels is hoping someone recognizes this man, who she says threatened her in a Las Vegas parking lot in 2011 after she shared her Trump story with a tabloid. The tabloid didn't publish the story at the time.
He had his hands in his pocket, and he looked at my daughter, and I just remember him saying, like, oh, it's a beautiful little girl. It'd be ashamed if something happened to her mom. Forget about this story. Leave Mr. Trump alone. His face is burned in my memory.
Daniels' lawyer Michael Avenatti even touting a reward for anyone who can help identify the man.
If you positively identify him, we're going to pay you $100,000 because we want to get to the bottom of who this is.
Daniels didn't go to the police, saying she didn't want to because her husband at the time didn't know of the alleged affair.
I would have had to tell an entire police department, and police reports are public record. I know that for a fact. I had sex with Donald Trump. And then the whole world would have known, and I was in the process of trying to quiet that or figure out what to do. And honestly, I was just afraid, and I didn't want everyone to know. I didn't want my family to find out that way. I didn't want my life turned upside down.
Today's interview coming a day after Daniels created a stir outside a New York courthouse as she arrived for a hearing to discuss the handling of evidence seized in last week's FBI raids on Cohen's home, hotel, and office. A search Daniels believes may have swept up communications related to her case.
I'm doing the job that I've been doing for the last almost 20 years. Yes, there's a lot of publicity, but I didn't do it for that because this isn't what I want to be known for.
Now, when it comes to the sketch, which wasn't made until 7 years after Daniels says she saw this man, her lawyer, Michael Avenatti, said they believe it will hold up and said the artist, Lois Gibson, whose website says she's helped law enforcement identify more than 750 criminals, has worked with cases that have been much older than 7 years of age and has been very successful in getting identifications and having things like that hold up in a court of law. Jay.
All right, Athena Jones, thank you so much. Stormy Daniels' attorney, Michael Avenatti, joins me now. Michael, thanks so much for joining us. You said you have some names in mind of whom that sketch might be of. Has Ms. Daniels looked at photographs of these individuals, who it might be?
She has reviewed, Jake, a number of photographs over the last few weeks, couple weeks, actually, and we've narrowed it down. One of the reasons why we released the sketch today is because we are enlisting the public's help and trying to help us get over the goal line to help positively ID this individual. And we're hopeful that someone saw something or heard something that will allow us to make an absolute positive ID. We're obviously not going to release any names until we have assurance that it may, in fact, be that person for obvious reasons.
But you've narrowed it down, but you're also, just in case, asking the public, because it would seem that would be contradictory, asking the public for help, and yet you've also narrowed it down from photographs.
Well, we've narrowed it down to some individuals that we think it may be, but it's actually not contradictory, because what we're hoping, Jake, is that somebody saw something or heard something. Ideally, one of these individuals would have bragged about it to a member of the public, and we're hopeful that if someone comes forward and provides either one of the names that we have, that would be ideal, because we think that that would be rather conclusive, or in fact gives us another lead that we run to ground, that could also be helpful. So we don't want to prejudge this.
Are the photographs that you have that she's looked at, are they individuals who worked for Mr. Trump or Mr. Cohen at some point in the past?
We believe indirectly.
Indirectly. You released a sketch around 11:30 this morning. How many emailed tips have you received at the email that you've shared, idthethug@gmail.com? How many tips have come in?
At this point, over 400.
400. I want to ask you about the threat. Just help me clear something up on the timeline here. Did Ms. Daniels do her interview with In Touch magazine about the alleged affair with Donald Trump before receiving the threat or after receiving the threat?
I'm almost positive that it was before, Jake.
But you're not 100% positive?
Well, I wasn't expecting the question, so I'd have to look at the timeline, but I'm almost positive. In fact, no, I am positive now that I'm thinking about it, that it was before.
Before. So she was threatened before the interview?
No, she gave the interview before she was threatened.
She gave the interview before she was threatened. Okay. The judge's decision yesterday to let Michael Cohen's legal team review the documents seized by the FBI, was that a setback?
No, not at all. In fact, and this really needs to be clarified. Other than so when the FBI conducted its raids, they seized about 10 bankers' boxes worth of hard copy documents, and then they also imaged on site various electronic media, phones, computers, hard drives, things of that nature. It's our understanding from the U.S. Attorney's Office that the electronic media and the phones, once they were imaged on site at Michael Cohen's home and offices, those were left behind. They were intact. So Michael Cohen has had the ability, him and his counsel, to review that information ever since the raids took place 9 days ago. So the only thing they haven't had access to are the 10 boxes of documents, which they're now going to get access to. But the vast majority of information, Jake, and this will probably come as no surprise to you and others, was electronic.
I want you to help clear up something, if you can. Michael Cohen said in court that Sean Hannity was his third client. There was President Trump, Elliot Broidy, the former RNC finance official who had that payment with a Playboy Playmate, and then Sean Hannity. Michael Cohen says he was. Sean Hannity says he was not.
Well, Jake, reading between the tea leaves, I'm going to tell you what I think. Michael Cohen did not just volunteer Sean Hannity's name as a client for no reason. There's a reason behind it, and he did not volunteer it in this context for no reason. Remember the context that we're talking about, Jake. What we're talking about is the judge wanted to know the names of individuals that would be considered clients by Michael Cohen for the purposes of the document review of the documents the FBI seized. So what this tells me very, very clearly is that there are documents with Sean Hannity's name on them in the information the FBI seized.
Well, Sean Hannity says that that's not true. He's just had, little conversations here and there, no representation, et cetera.
Well, I don't know why then Michael Cohen's attorney would have engaged in a lengthy debate with the judge about whether this individual's name, Sean Hannity, needed to be disclosed or not, if in fact he was never a client. That makes no sense to me. There's a reason why Michael Cohen made it a point to list him as a client. And it's got to be because there's information that they don't want to get out relating to Mr. Hannity. It doesn't make any sense otherwise.
You've suggested that you think Michael Cohen is likely to flip and roll on President Trump, right?
No, I haven't suggested that. I haven't suggested it. I've stated it as a fact, and I believe it's an absolute fact.
He's had only 3 clients in the past few years. He's worked with President Trump for years. He clearly adores him. Why do you think he would be willing to flip?
Because when you're facing possible incarceration and you have a wife and kids that you care about, that has a tendency to really focus the mind, Jake. I've seen it in connection with other clients that I've represented in the past during my 18-year career, and I don't believe at the end of the day that Michael Cohen is going to face or take a significant bullet for the president and potentially face imprisonment or go to prison. I just don't see it. I don't think he's tough enough to do it. I don't think he'd be loyal enough to do it, and I think it would be rather stupid for him to do it.
The president has exercised his pardon before. Some people have speculated that the Scooter Libby pardon was at least partly based in sending a signal to individuals out there that the president is willing to do that. Isn't it possible that Michael Cohen feels, hey, there's no threat here because whatever I'm charged with, even if I'm convicted, the president will pardon me?
Well, he may feel that way, but I think that's foolhardy, Jake. I mean, remember, Michael Cohen was expected to go to D.C. with the president after the election, was expected to be taken care of. None of that came to fruition. The president has a history of demanding loyalty but being disloyal to others around him when push comes to shove. I mean, I think that's well documented. So I think that would be a foolish calculation on Michael Cohen's part. And at the end of the day, I think he's going to come to the right decision. It'll probably be one of the smartest decisions he's made in a long time.
Michael Avenatti, thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake.
James Comey making a bold new claim about the current state of the FBI. That story's next. Also, a deadly engine explosion mid-flight on a Southwest Airlines plane right here in the United States. Was a woman sucked through a plane window? Now we're hearing the conversation with air traffic control. Stay with us.
Hiring? Every business needs great people, and a better way to find them. Something better than posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. ZipRecruiter knew there was a smarter way, so they built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply to your job. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive, so you never miss a great match. The right candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. Right now, listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Tapper. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Tapper. ZipRecruiter.com/Tapper. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
In our politics lead today, fired FBI Director James Comey hitting the president back, saying that the president's tweets and actions are, quote, not normal. But he says writing his new book was not about President Trump.
I was moved to write it because this is a very dangerous time in the United States where his leadership is threatening some of our values. And so I thought I could be useful, after being fired, in trying to offer people a vision of what ethical leadership looks like.
It sounds like it's about President Trump. I want to bring in CNN's Sarah Murray. Sarah, Comey also had a warning for the public today.
That's right, a warning not to get desensitized to the president's attacks, particularly when they are directed at the rule of law. Of course, this as President Trump says his former FBI director belongs in jail. Fired FBI Director James Comey says there's no way around it. The Bureau's reputation has taken a hit.
Do you think the FBI's credibility is better or worse than it was a couple of years ago?
It's worse.
But in his latest interview, Comey insists the FBI would be even worse off if it weren't for his actions. The FBI and the Justice Department have come under intense public scrutiny, both for their handling of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server and the Russia investigation. Plus, it's under daily siege from the current president, Comey tells NPR. The president's ire this week targeting Comey himself, saying the FBI director he fired belongs in jail. The big questions in Comey's badly reviewed book aren't answered, like how come he gave up classified information? Jail. Why did he lie to Congress? Jail.
Yeah, that is not normal. That is not okay. First of all, he's just making stuff up. But most importantly, the President of the United States is calling for the imprisonment of a private citizen, as he's done for a whole lot of people who criticize him. That is not acceptable in this country. The president doesn't get to decide who goes to jail.
While the president prides himself on punching back, Comey says it's disturbing behavior from a man sitting in the Oval Office.
I think that's a danger, that we're numb to it. We wake up in the morning and see the President of the United States is accusing people of crimes without evidence and pronouncing them guilty and saying they should be in jail. That should wake all of us up with a start, but there's been so much of it that we're a little bit numb.
As for whether Trump did anything that ran afoul of the law, Comey says without the full picture, he still isn't sure whether Trump has tried to obstruct justice. Telling NPR, obstruction of justice requires a demonstration of corrupt intent. I don't know what the evidence is that the prosecutor and investigators have gathered with respect to intent. It may be there, it may not be. Now, of course, Comey has his own window into possible obstruction of justice. When he was the FBI director, he says President Trump encouraged him to let go of the investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. The president, of course, insists that conversation never happened. Jake.
All right, Sarah Murray, thanks so much. I want to bring in my political panel to talk about this. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Comey. There's the individual decisions he made, and then there's his broader message about President Trump. Take a listen to what he had to say in this new interview.
The danger with President Trump is all of us will just become numb to this and accept it. And we can't. He's the President of the United States. He's the lawful President of the United States. He was lawfully elected President of the United States. But that doesn't mean we have to accept behavior that degrades our values.
Kevin Madden, is he wrong? I mean, I understand that there's all sorts of things that you can say about Comey's decisions here and there, and we can get to all of that. But his fundamental message sounds a lot like what I heard from Mitt Romney in March 2016.
Yeah, that there's somehow a degradation of some of the internal controls that we have on how people administer themselves inside government. So I think not only does he make the charge, but then he offers sort of trail of evidence to back up his assertion. But, I think one of the big dangers here for Comey is that he always enjoyed a reputation as an arbiter of information, an arbiter of the truth, an arbiter of facts. And he is very much now, because he is taking this directly on to the president and directly criticizing the president, he has become a political figure. And so much of that is driving people's reaction to Comey, because in politics, unlike what he was doing as an FBI director, politics is about me versus you. Politics is about winning versus losing. And so much of what he is saying right now is not being judged based on the merits, not being judged on facts, but is being grabbed by partisans to really sort of further the narrative that they have fixed.
And Jen Psaki, do you agree? I mean, is he risking his own credibility by stepping outside the role of a presenter of evidence to a judge making a decision?
To some degree, yes, because typically as somebody who's been in this role or who's coming from law enforcement, it's not just that they're nonpartisan. They stay completely out of all political debates. However, the reality is that he is hated by people who supported Hillary Clinton. The progressive left of the Democratic Party still hates him. He didn't say impeachment should happen. He's made comments, if you read between the lines of many of his interviews, about how guns and immigration and a lot of the issues that many Democrats care about shouldn't be a part of the decision-making factor. He's making the point that he's not trying to make a partisan argument. So there's certainly risk involved. However, if people are being honest, I'm not saying they always are, he really is not aligned himself with either party. He's basically said, you're all kind of terrible, but I need to stand up for truth and the United States and rule of law.
Yeah, just real quick, though. He said in one of his interviews, the truth should be, these truths we hold them to be self-evident. Mm-hmm. Not so much anymore, I think, in today's national conversation.
Do you think that he's damaging himself?
In
Yeah, and I certainly in the eyes of both parties, right? He's a political figure right now, but he doesn't really have a political party.
He doesn't see himself as a political figure. He doesn't see himself
as a political person. He sees himself, there's a certain amount of, I think, self-righteousness that people, I think, are seeing in James Comey at this point. Like, he is somehow above the kind of partisan bickering, obviously not liked by both sides, as you were talking about, Jen Psaki. And we'll see, what his kind of future is, what his brand will be going beyond this, and how well his book sales will do. That's one of the things I'm interested in. If you think about all the buzz around Fire and Fury, and it was on the bestseller list, probably, I'm sure it still is, it'll be interesting to see who buys this book, if there's as much buzz around it. We'll wait for your interview on Thursday.
Thank you for the plug. What do you make, Jen Psaki, of his explanation that the reason he includes those physical details about President Trump in his book is not because he's trying to take a shot at President Trump, writing about his hair or his skin or his tan line under his eye or his hand size, but that he's just trying to be a writer? Was that convincing to you?
Not really. Honestly, I think, I've never written a book. You've written books, I think. But anyone who's written a book will say the editors are always looking for anecdotes, and they're looking for color, and they're looking for observations. And I'm certain he had those conversations. I wish those details weren't a part of it. Yes, it's humorous. He looked at the size of Trump's hands, something we've perhaps all looked at. But it diminishes the overall message.
Everyone stick around. We got a lot more to talk about. And a reminder, on Thursday, I'm asking ex-FBI Director James Comey the questions he has not answered yet in his first cable news interview since being fired by President Trump. You'll see it right here live on The Lead this Thursday at 4 p.m. So, why the mixed messages on Russia sanctions? A White House official says UN Ambassador Nikki Haley must have been a bit confused when she said new sanctions were coming as soon as yesterday. Maybe that's because of the bus she seems to have been thrown under. Stay with us.
The right sheets can take your sleep and your style to the next level. With Boll & Branch, the upgrade has never been more affordable. Every set is crafted from 100% organic cotton. They get softer and softer over time. That's why they have thousands of 5-star reviews, and even 3 U.S. presidents have Boll & Branch sheets. Try them for 30 nights, and if you don't love them, send them back for a full refund. Go to bollandbranch.com today for $50 off your first set of sheets, plus free U.S. shipping with promo code CNN2. Spelled B-O-L-L and branch.com. That's bollandbranch.com, promo code CNN2.
We're back with our world lead now. The White House today suggested that UN Ambassador Nikki Haley might have been, in their words, confused in an effort to explain why the White House has not announced new sanctions against Russia for supporting Syria's Assad, as Haley announced they would do on national television on Sunday, she said, as soon as Monday. CNN's Jeff Zeleny reports.
The White House insisting today President Trump isn't backpedaling on new Russia sanctions. But a second straight day of confusion is highlighting the administration's lack of a coherent and consistent policy toward Russia. The latest contradictions coming after UN Ambassador Nikki Haley declared this on Sunday.
You will see that Russian sanctions will be coming down. Secretary Mnuchin will be announcing those on Monday, if he hasn't already, and they will go directly to any sort of companies that were dealing with equipment related to Assad and chemical weapons use.
But those sanctions didn't come. The president rejected the idea, despite his pointed words while announcing airstrikes against Syria.
Russia must decide if it will continue down this dark path or if it will join with civilized nations as a force for stability and peace. Hopefully someday we'll get along with Russia and maybe even Iran, but maybe not.
In Florida today, the president did not address the controversy as he welcomed Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for a summit at Mar-a-Lago. Larry Kudlow, the president's chief economic advisor, telling reporters today there was no backpedaling.
No, I think the issue here is we have a set of sanctions, and additional sanctions are under consideration but not been determined.
But asked directly about Haley, he said her announcement was premature.
She got ahead of the curve. There might have been some momentary confusion about that.
The White House effectively throwing Haley under the bus. A senior administration official telling CNN, Haley walked away from a West Wing meeting on Friday believing the sanctions were finalized, even though Trump had yet to sign off on them. At the United Nations today, Haley did not address the matter. Asked about the sanctions, Senate Foreign Relations Chairman Bob Corker had one word in mind:
confusion.
He said he has not received an explanation from the White House on why the president didn't sign off on the new round of sanctions.
It just sounds like confusion from the White House.
So no word, Jake, from Ambassador Haley on what exactly happened, her side of the story, if you will, from her announcement on Sunday to the president rejecting this on Monday. The State Department, though, is saying this afternoon that sanctions could come soon against Russia. That's what Larry Kudlow, the president's economic advisor here in Florida, told us earlier this afternoon. So, Jake, certainly one more sign of at least apparent confusion over this White House's strategy toward Russia. Jake?
Jeff Zeleny with the president. Thanks so much. My panel's back with me. Kevin, take a look at this picture from the New York Times that reporter Glenn Thrush of the contradictory headlines from Monday's paper versus today's paper about the sanctions. I have to be honest. I have a tough time believing that Nikki Haley was confused. No. I think it would fit in perfectly with this White House and this administration that everybody agreed on it, and then President Trump either changed his mind or hadn't understood it to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's pretty simple, actually. I think that members of the administration are just not on the same page with the president. And the president is oftentimes resistant with some of the policy recommendations that they're making. I mean, they want to talk tough. They want to show with some sense of resolve. They want to provide some sense of clarity when it comes to Russia. But the president does not. And I think he meets every single one of those overtures from his internal staff with resistance. And that's one of the big problems that they're going to continue to have, because this kind of foreign policy requires that you have clarity and resolve on exactly what you're doing, not looking like there are internal deliberations that both that our opponents can then exploit.
And Nia, there was a great story in the Washington Post just yesterday about the fact that there have been times throughout this administration where the Trump administration is pushing President Trump to do something strong to sanction Russia for the behavior, whether it's the 2016 election interference or now with supporting Assad, and President Trump has rejected it or not liked it or gotten mad after the fact because he didn't realize it was going to be so tough.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, particularly they were talking about the expulsions of those Russians, the fact that it was 60. Once it came out, he was said to be enraged that it was so many and that it wasn't in keeping with what some of the European countries did. The Vanity Fair had a pretty funny headline, which was about these sanctions, which said, Trump enraged after finding out he stood up to Putin. I mean, it sounds like
who said
it was
that?
Vanity Fair. I mean, it sort of sounds like an Onion headline, but that's exactly what it seems like.
But it's true.
Yeah, and it seems like that's what happened here, and I agree. I mean, Nikki Haley is very careful, very cautious, sounded very confident in that interview there, and you see her under the bus, and in some ways you've seen this with other officials. I mean, how often was Tillerson under the bus? I mean, even permanent residents there, essentially, often contradicted by this president once he went out, and then you'd find something on Twitter that the president would say, and here you have Nikki Haley in a position where she's sort of the de facto Secretary of State at this point, because there's not anybody in place there. So she is kind of the forward-facing person in terms of Syria and foreign policy right now. So we'll see what happens.
Take a listen to Madeleine Albright, also a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, about the disconnect. I was talking to her, the disconnect between President Trump and Nikki Haley on this.
I feel sorry for Nikki Haley. She has been very tough up there making points. She makes very clear that she represents the president. And all of a sudden she's put into this ridiculous situation of looking as though she is out there by herself on something. And that undermines the whole decision-making process and makes us, frankly, look absolutely inept.
Nikki Haley, I think it's fair to say, is one of the stars of the Trump administration, highly regarded among Republicans and Democrats. Do you think that this could be problematic for her?
Well, it could send a signal that things are more problematic for her internally than we suspect. I mean, Nikki Haley, yes, she's a star. Trump clearly has liked her over time. She has gotten ahead of him on Russia and been stronger and more strident in her language consistently over the last year. So nobody should miss that particular piece. There was some reporting today about how Trump was also angry that she had gone out and made this announcement. And that often has been a determinant of somebody's rise and fall in the administration. So we'll see. I mean, externally, it's clear that she looks like I don't think most people believe she was confused. I think most people believe, including people in foreign capitals, that she was speaking on behalf of a decision made. But then the question is, does she still have the confidence of Trump? And that can be equally damaging, if not more, on the international stage.
What's also interesting about this, Kevin, is that this comes at the same time that Comey says not only does President Trump not want to criticize Putin publicly, although he did recently when it came to Assad issue that one tweet, but generally speaking, President Trump has been very reluctant to criticize Putin publicly. But Comey says he won't even do it privately.
Yeah, but I also think that's not inconsistent with what the president argued during the campaign, which is that wouldn't it be a good thing if we had Russia and we were closer and had a better relationship with Russia? But I think the problem here is not that. The problem is that we have dueling policy proclamations in the space of 24 hours that confused not only opponents, but which I think they used to exploit, but our allies. I mean, when you have somebody who is the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, like Senator Corker, using the term confusion over and over and over to describe what he's getting as far as policy proclamations out of the White House, that becomes a huge problem.
Nia Malika, I want to get your response. President Trump just made a comment. He's meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, talking about the potential meeting between the United States and North Korea. Take a listen.
We will probably be, depending on the various meetings and conversations, we'll be having meetings with Kim Jong-un very soon. That'll be taking place probably in early June or a little before that, assuming things go well. It's possible things won't go well and we won't have the meetings.
Possibly having meetings in early June or a little before that.
Yeah, I mean, confusion. It's unclear whether or not this meeting is going to happen. It apparently was supposed to be in May. Initially, this was a decision that the president really seemed to make unilaterally to meet with KJU. And then there was some confusion even after that, some mixed signals from this White House, and we get more mixed signals from this White House on this, what would be a huge meeting. And we'll see if it happens. We don't know.
All right, everybody stick around. Chaos all around. Passengers say they saw a woman sucked toward a broken plane window during a deadly engine explosion on a flight to Dallas. The terrifying air traffic control audio coming up. Stay with us.
The NBA playoff excitement continues on TNT and on the Watch TNT app.
NBA playoffs.
This is gut check time.
1, 2, 3.
I'm like fine wine. I get better with age.
He's a highlight machine.
This is a year for sure. When that time comes, we'll be ready.
We have breaking news. A terrifying incident on a plane has meant that one woman is now dead after a Southwest Airlines flight was forced to make an emergency landing in Philadelphia today due to engine failure. Passengers aboard the Dallas-bound flight heard an explosion before oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Air traffic control captured the mayhem on board, including one passenger being sucked towards a broken window aboard the aircraft, according to an eyewitness.
Injured passengers, okay, and is your airplane physically on fire?
Prep fire, but part of it's missing. They said there was a hole and someone went out.
I'm sorry, you said there was a hole and somebody went out? Southwest 1380, it doesn't matter. We'll work it out there.
CNN's Polo Sandoval joins me now live from Philadelphia. Polo, what exactly caused the engine failure?
Well, Jake, that is a key question that federal investigators are on the ground now to answer. Officials from the National Transportation Safety Board who are now here essentially going through what's left of the engine of the plane that's way off in the distance that has since been removed from the tarmac to allow those airport operations at Philadelphia International Airport to continue. What we know at this point that flight left New York's LaGuardia Airport shortly after 10:30 this morning. Not long into that flight is when passengers aboard that flight described that loud jolt, the engine failure that's been described. And then followed by that emergency call that was placed into air traffic control at about 11:15 in the morning. It wasn't until 11:27 a.m. that plane was wheels down here in Philadelphia. Jake, do the math. That's 13 minutes. That must have felt like a lifetime for the 143 passengers and 5 crew aboard that Boeing 737.
And that must have been so traumatic for everyone on board, Polo.
Yeah, Marty Martinez, one of the passengers aboard that flight, described some horrific moments there. Part of the debris that essentially came off that engine hit the fuselage, creating that hole, shattering or breaking that window. Mr. Martinez describing a female passenger essentially being partially ejected from the plane at one point, passengers holding onto her as the flight made that sudden descent. The plane made that sudden descent. In the meantime, some of his colleagues, for example, were describing what they were experiencing. One of them even writing a note to his wife and his unborn son, preparing for the worst. We now know, though, that the crew, the pilots aboard that plane were able to successfully land that plane here on the ground in Philadelphia. Officials here on the ground, Jake, certainly considering that nothing short of a miracle, that at least the losses were kept at a minimum, particularly, though, we do know that at least one person now confirmed dead. That woman, the circumstances of her death or the direct cause of death, well, that still hasn't been confirmed by officials here in Philadelphia.
So just to be clear, we don't know that the woman who died from this tragedy in the air is the same woman who was sucked almost out the window.
That's correct, Jake. I think that's going to be a key question. Oftentimes, it was quite stressful, a stressful moment that was lived aboard that flight. So there certainly is no telling what some of these passengers experienced, and if that death was a direct result of some of the debris that hit the fuselage of that plane. Certainly, part of the investigation will eventually reveal that.
When we're hearing praise for the pilots that they landed so quickly and they kept losses to such a minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what passengers are describing, many of them taking to social media to express their appreciation. The way some of these passengers were describing those moments after the plane landed was immediately after chaos, these passengers breaking into tears, realizing that they were finally safe on the ground. But of course, the worst certainly was not over. Many of these officials, these first responders, rushing to the scene on the tarmac you see behind me to try to get to the injured. We understand there were about a dozen people who had to be treated here on scene. One person that was taken away, that woman that was critically injured, we now know, sadly, did not make it.
All right. Horrible tragedy in the air. Polo Sandoval in Philadelphia. Thank you so much. Actor Sean Penn is taking on President Trump in a way in his new novel, ripped from the stranger than fiction headlines of modern day America. The Oscar winner joins me next. Stay with us.
Hey, it's Howard Beck, and I've got Kevin Pritchard on Bleacher Report's The Full 48.
They've overachieved wildly, and every single game, sometimes I leave the arena, I go, how did we win that game? But we keep doing it. You know, it's like we played well down the stretch, and the last 4 or 5 minutes, we can be a tough team, and we've lost close games, but we win our fair share, too.
So check out The Full 48 now on the Bleacher Report app or subscribe at Apple Podcasts.
In our pop culture lead, Oscar-winning actor Sean Penn is out with his debut novel. It's a satirical look at political culture in this new Trump era, a no-holds-barred look at everything from President Trump to the American electorate. Joining me now is Sean Penn. He's the author of Bob Honey Who Just Do Stuff, a novel that is out now and very enjoyable and very intriguing, and I want to get to it in a second. But there's fiction and then there's reality, and I just have to ask, I mean, right now we're in a world where the president's being investigated for possible ties to Russia. His fired FBI director, James Comey, says he's unfit to lead, morally unfit to lead. Then there's a porn star dragging his lawyer into court. His lawyer is under criminal investigation. For somebody who works in fiction, whether film or now novels, is it challenging in the environment we're in to come up with things that are more bizarre than what the truth that we're living?
Yeah, I think that one has to redefine satire. Of course, in fiction, the stakes are less severe than what we've got going. I've thought a lot lately about how we've kind of passed that moment of the Patty Chayefsky moment of I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, where the word mad was a sort of righteous, indignant anger. And now it really means madness. And it seems that we're more and more at the stage I'm mad as hell and I'm just going to keep taking it. The normalization of it all is the part that's not satirical and the part that concerns me the most.
And when you talk about madness, what do you mean? Obviously, there are 63 million Americans who voted for President Trump and support his goals. Some of them have concerns about his behavior. Many do not. What specifically, in your view, is madness?
Well, I think that when we do things, as I believe a lot of very good Americans did, who, as I say in the book, in a fictional context, might vote out of rage and pain. That a lot of good Americans did that. Evidently, some Russians did too, in some sense. And we're kind of, kicking the tree instead of really making rational decisions. And I don't see that ending very soon. I think that we're really up against it. This is, I don't say this lightly, but Norman Mailer had once said that this is the first century that mankind may not complete. And balancing hope with that looming reality, given the climate and the kind of degradation of integrity that seems to be so pervasive, I needed to write a book that I could talk about these things, but laugh.
And it's a satirical book. The character, an old-fashioned American man living in today's current political, cultural climate. I'm wondering, there's a character, Mr. Landlord. At one point, the main character even talks about impeaching Mr. Landlord at the end. Is that a stand-in for President Trump, per se?
That's the reader's choice. For me, the book is much more about, let's say, the cumulative 15 years or so in particular that all of us have participated in what a President Trump or many other things in the culture today, in creating that. Those are more the end result. So I wasn't determined that it be interpreted as one leader or another. It was much more about the culture at large and where we are.
Sean Penn's debut novel, Bob Honey, Who Just Do Stuff, is out now. Sean Penn, thanks so much. It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Pleasure.
And Stormy Daniels wants to know, can you help her ID the thug? That's ahead. Stay with us.